ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामी इति नामिने। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the series of the chapter-wise overview of the Bhagavad Gita. We will be discussing today chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Karma Yoga, the yoga of action. So let me quickly share screen of the verses. So after the second chapter, where the Lord gives a summary study of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna seems to be a bit confused. So he begins the third chapter by actually asking a question to the Lord to clarify a particular point. So he asks Lord Krishna, "Oh Lord, if you think that knowledge is better or working with the right intelligence is better, why are you asking me to fight?" Actually, Arjuna has misunderstood the Lord's instruction, wherein the Lord criticized fruitive activity and encouraged the following of Buddhi Yoga. He misinterprets it as a call for inaction. So he seeks clarity on the Lord that if you are asking me to take an inaction path, why are you asking me to fight at the end of the whole thing? So he is confused. So Krishna, like a good teacher, always eager to clarify the doubts of his student. The Lord starts by explaining that Arjuna, there are two kinds of people who approach the supreme realization. Some approach him intellectually through the process of Sankhya Yoga. They are attached to a knowledge based analytical understanding and they start their journey from there. And some are inclined to approach the supreme through active work, Karma Yoga, detached work. But actually, I never told you, Arjuna, that my recommendation for you is to be inactive. Inactiveness is never a means of elevation. In fact, inaction is not even a practical solution. It is not possible, Arjuna, to become free from the entanglement of karma by remaining inactive. In fact, Arjun, it is not even possible to be inactive. The modes of nature which are there within oneself for a conditioned soul, they will impel him to act. Artificially repressing action for a person who's still impelled by the modes is not at all fruitful, and that is not called inaction, because the conditioned soul in his heart and mind is still absorbed in a materialistic consciousness. So externally repressing activity while the mind is active at a material level is not actually going to lead to advancement. In fact, it is going to result in frustration. This is pretense. This is not perfection. So do not become inactive like that. And inaction is actually not even possible even for the maintenance of the body. Just think about it, Arjun. If you're going to be inactive fully because you're afraid of action, then how are you even going to maintain your body? Even for that, you need to be active. So having considered all these points, you should understand that my recommendation is never inaction. Inaction is not a practical solution. So what was my recommendation? My recommendation to you in the second chapter was perform your duty, but perform it with detachment. Do not perform another person's duty. You wanted to be a beggar, you wanted to be a sannyasi, but that is not your duty, Arjun. It is my clear opinion that performing another's duty is dangerous because one must act based on one's nature and one must execute duty based on one's nature. And that is the path to elevation. Simply copying another's duty based on skill is not a path of elevation. So do not go down that path. That path is very dangerous. So what is the way of freedom? The way of freedom is detached work. Offer the results of the work to me. And that is the process of yajna. Sacrifice the fruits of your activities for the Supreme, and then you will be free. Arjun, understand this principle of sacrifice very clearly. This is a very important conception of spiritual understanding. And this whole material world is also based on this principle of yajna. In fact, at the beginning of creation, Arjun, when I created this world and gave the Vedas, I gave the knowledge of yajna and the system of yajna at the beginning of creation. And what is this principle of yajna? In very simple words, Arjuna, it means that everything in this world is interdependent, interconnected, and one must have a symbiotic relationship where one repays when he draws something from the system. You cannot simply take from the system and not reciprocate by offering something in return. That would be like becoming a thief, and you don't want to be a thief. So yajna means acknowledging what the system is doing for you and repaying it appropriately. And that is why one must perform yajna. One simple example, Arjuna. In this world, the living entities are subsisting on food which is coming from the rains, and the rains and the various forces of nature are controlled by various deities. So the common man is obliged to the deities. And that is why he must repay to these divine personalities who are in charge of these various forces of nature by doing yajna. And in return, these deities take care of ensuring that you all have the necessities for a happy and peaceful life. This is very simple. Not following the process of yajna is actually being a thief and is punishable karmically. So make sure you follow the process of yajna, and performance of duty is a part of following the process of yajna. So everyone has to follow their duty. Is there anybody who doesn't need to follow the duty? Actually, all those who are entangled in the material world, who are still trapped, are obliged to do their material duties. Only a person who is truly liberated from this material energy is actually no longer obliged. They have no material duty because they have no obligation to the material system. They have transcended it by their devotion to the Lord. But even such people, Arjuna, even though they have transcended, even though they do not have a duty, they continue to perform their duties in this world just to set the right example for people in general. Why? Because whatever great people do in this world, common people follow. See the example of Janak Maharaj. He continued to do his duties even after being self-realized. So the same should be followed by common people. What about others? Even I myself, Arjun, when I appear in this world, even though I have no duty, I have nothing to gain from the system. The system comes from me. I don't need to pay to the system. I am the Lord and Master of it and the controller of it. But even then, based on my specific, the situation of my appearance, I still perform my duties. Why do I do that? Again, to set the right example. Because if I fail to set the right example, Arjuna, as the Lord, all living entities will take my example and start whimsically abandoning their duties. That will lead to ruination. Abandonment of duty is the cause of disturbance and ruination, Arjuna. That is never a path to be taken. So, be clear, what is the difference between fruitive work and work in devotion? What I asked you to avoid was fruitive work, because fruitive work is what causes bondage. Fruitive work is doing activities or even your duties with the desire for a material benefit. But the same duties, when they are done for the Lord with detachment for one's own enjoyment, they constitute working in devotion. So inaction is not the way, work in devotion is the way, and choose that. So Arjun, fight. That is your duty. You fight, but not for your own benefit. You fight without attachment for any gain. Don't be egoistic. Don't take it as a personal fight. Take it as a fight for me. And don't be lazy because you're not fighting for yourself. You must still fight with your best skill, with your best effort, because you're doing it for me, the Lord. Have that consciousness, and this will take you to the highest level. This is the key teaching, Arjun. This is what I was stressing in the second chapter also, which you did not understand. So I hope you have understood this correctly. If someone disregards this central key teaching, they are doomed. There is no way out. One must understand the importance of performing detached work. And is it so easy to perform detached work? No, I didn't say that either. So what exactly is the main obstacle, Arjun, for living entities to perform detached work and dedicate that work to the Lord? What is it that stops them? The secret of this is that actually it is material attachment, lust, which distracts people from being steadfast in this kind of a practice. It is this lust which, when frustrated, when not satisfied, transforms itself into anger. It is this lust which is actually covering the pure consciousness of the soul. It is this lust which makes the soul forget who the soul actually is, a pure spiritual spark, part and parcel of the Lord. It is this lust which keeps the soul attached and entangled in this material world and contaminates the consciousness in such a way that the soul is unable to see its real spiritual nature. I'll give you a few examples of how the lust covers the pure consciousness of the soul. There are three levels of covering. One is like smoke which covers a fire. This is a lower level of covering, like a covering in Sattva Guna, so that the fire is not easily visible when there is a lot of smoke around it. Similarly, the lust is covering the pure consciousness of the soul. Or another example where the covering is even more thicker is like dirt covering a mirror. When dirt covers a mirror, one is unable to see one's reflection clearly. This is like Rajoguna, which is even more powerful in covering the consciousness of the soul. And even more than that is tamogun, which covers the consciousness of the soul to such an extent that the soul is practically in the darkness of ignorance, just like a womb covers an embryo and keeps him in total darkness. So understand, it is actually this lust who is actually the enemy of the soul and contaminates the consciousness, doesn't allow the soul to understand its real nature. And you may ask, Arjun, where is this lust to be found? Because you want to tackle it, you must know where it lies. So this lust lies in three parts in your body. One, in the senses, because the senses are demanding various sense objects. Then it is in the mind, because the mind is desiring various kind of pleasant experiences. And it is in the intelligence, which is even higher than the mind, which is planning in various ways to achieve materialistic enjoyment. Higher than the senses is the mind, and higher than the mind is the intelligence. Of course, the soul is higher than all the three. So, how to deal with this lust? One must control and eradicate this lust from these three houses. It must be evicted from the senses, mind, and intelligence. And what is the process? The process is by fortifying your intelligence with spiritual knowledge. When you fortify your intelligence with the knowledge that I have been explaining all this while, the intelligence, which is higher than the mind, is able to direct the mind to be absorbed in spiritual consciousness. And when the mind is absorbed in spiritual consciousness and spiritual thoughts, naturally the senses which are gathered around the mind follow suit. Then it becomes easy. So use the spiritual strength which is acquired by fortifying one's spiritual intelligence to overcome this enemy of lust. Because unless you overcome this enemy of lust, self-realization, liberation is going to be far away for you. This is my teaching. Be careful that you take care of lust and the lust is purified so that you can always remain in a pure consciousness. Only then you will be able to fix your consciousness on me and work with determination to follow the process of Buddhi Yoga that I explained to you earlier. Inaction is not the way. The way is continue to do your duty with detachment, but for my pleasure. That is the way to liberation. Arjuna, I hope you have now understood your confusion between whether to be active or to be inactive. Okay, so that is how the Lord actually ends the third chapter by explaining or giving the answer to this particular doubt of Arjun. And that brings us to the conclusion of the third chapter, which is entitled Karma Yoga. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Hare Krishna.